Welcome to another episode of Rooster Talk, where we get these ASX companies to give us an update, and we sort of have a discussion of their recent announcements and news. We're here at the University Club in Crawley on the University of Western Australia campus, and I've got Brett Hazelden here from OD6 Metals Limited. The ASX code is OD6. The market cap is 48.15 million. Significantly higher than 18.5 the last time you were here.
Right.
And obviously, OD6 had a good announcement recently. Brett's here to tell us all about it. Brett, far away.
Thanks for having us, and beautiful day today. Hopefully the sun's shining on the stock as well and going forward. So yeah, we had some first half of our drill results come out just recently, so we've still got another 50% of those pending, but the first half of the results, 20 to 30 metre thick intersections, up to 80 metre thicks, 1,000 to 2,000 trio, with the highest grades up to 6,500. So some really good results from that perspective. So the market obviously got on the back of that and had a good run on us. And that's across 4 major prospects that we've now sort of delineated, and those prospects are between 4 to 7 kilometres in length in one direction. And one of them, we know we've got a perpendicular line on it as well, so we know that it also goes probably another 4 or 5 kilometres in a different direction. So really sort of happy with the results, probably better than we expected and probably bigger than we expected as well.
Now, when we look at your numbers, 6,000 and decent depth of intercept, is that 6,000 like Mecca, or can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so 6,000 is sort of one of the intercepts along the whole area, so I try not to sort of talk too much about the big intersection, big high level numbers. What we want is the 10 to 30 metre intersections that are consistently 1,000 plus trio effectively. And then what that then does for us is it says we've got one big massive ore body effectively, one big pit, and that we can consistently mine it. Whereas if you have these spikes up and down, who knows what the spike's due to? It might be a refractory side of things, but if we know that it's consistent all the way through, that's great. And the other thing that we found on those big intersections is that they were pretty close to surface. So our flanker deposit was almost outcropping, and then other ones were about 20 metres in deep. So what does that mean? That means from a economic strip ratio, when you put a mine pit in there, it's going to be less than 1-to-1 stripping ratio, which is fantastic.
Now, the topography or ancient topography that you would have to face is always going to be the determinant of how much you have and how much of that you're going to have, right? Have you guys learned, like, are you getting really undulating stuff or very consistently that depth stuff? Yep,
so effectively what we've got is a whole heap of granite icebergs that sort of stick out of the ground at certain spots, and they were put in there about 1.2 billion years ago. And then over probably about 250 million years ago, all the glaciers came through, and the glaciers then effectively ground the tops of all these icebergs and then spread that clay, effectively what they turned it into, either in donuts or into the lower areas where it's actually deposited in. So for us, having lots of granites, that's great, and then having obviously the deposition of those clays in those lower lying areas is also a good concentration area for us as well.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit like the oil and gas game where you need the reservoir to hold it.
Yep.
And that's what you're looking for, right?
That's right. Yeah, where it's gone down into and where it's held. There's obviously still some stuff sitting on top of the old granites as well.
Yep.
So that's still there, but where you're looking for is just big, thick intersections, multiple kilometres in each direction, and then you've got lots of tonnes.
So when you talk about the big, long perpendicular assays or the drilling that you did, is that telling you strike? Is that giving you some sort of concept of strike that you have there, or is still based on these pockets of where they're holding?
So there's a mixture of both there. So we did 40 kilometres in one direction and 60 kilometres in the other direction, and we've obviously got a perpendicular area in there. So that perpendicular area we call the prospect, and we can see it 2 to 3 kilometres in that direction and sort of 4 kilometres in that direction. So it's giving us a scale just on that one, but then we've got 3 others of those, and that's only half the assays that we've got in as well. So look, she's a big area and we haven't defined it yet. We've been looking at some of the geophysics work that we're doing. So we've got the aeroplane doing the geophysics work down in Esperance at the moment, and we've looked at some historic stuff. And you can start mapping out all these little deposition areas that suddenly turn into sort of 10 square kilometres or more type stuff. So in terms of finding lots of tonnes, we're going to find lots of tonnes.
Yeah, I think people need to understand, 30 kilometres is a long way.
Yeah. So think of Perth up to, or past Joondalup and down to
Yeah,
Rockingham.
yeah.
Imagine going down the Mitchell Freeway or even down to the Kwinana Freeway and just having a hole every 200, 400 metres hitting grade.
Yeah.
There's a couple of spots where obviously the granites are outcropping.
Again, when I looked at your announcement, we're starting to see you guys defining magnetic rare earths and the critical rare earths.
Yep.
Can you sort of break that down for us? Obviously, now we can actually say, okay, that's what he's talking about. They've got 25% of this or X number of this. Is that something that we're going to see more and more of you guys telling us that?
Yeah, look, I think it's trying to demystify the industry and actually focus on what's important. So you start off with TREO, which is total rare earth oxides, which is 15 to 17 different elements, depending on how people define it. And then you want to narrow it down and you say the lanthanum and cerium, there's lots of it there, but they're not worth that much, and you'll find that in a lot of the hard rock ones. So really where the important stuff is the magnet rare earths. So you've got 4 different elements that we define in there, NdPr, and dysprosium, and also terbidium. So they're what's going into all the cars in terms of the magnets to put in the motors, into the wind turbines, into your air conditioners, into the military stuff that's going around. So they're going to have 20%, or we've got 20% plus of those, and that's where 90% of the value is going to come from when you actually come to mine it. So the reality is a lot of the other stuff you want to sort of get rid of. The high or the heavy rare earth side of things, again, clay rare earths generally have a higher proportion of this, and they're more rarer, if you want to put it that, of the rare earths at the lighter end of the scale. So they're important because they go into more military applications and other things. So I think more people will define that, and that's also helping investors understand what's important.
Yeah.
Because you can have a 2,000 or 3,000 ppm TREO, but it might have 5% NdPr, and it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I think that's really good. That clarifies a lot of my pet hate about this industry, is that people find it really hard. I find it really hard to understand whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. You know? So what have you guys learned from the drilling? I mean, you've done that first phase and you've got more work to do, but what have you learned?
It's probably bigger than we thought it was going to be. So that's the first learning. What we're doing now is we've just looked at the first lot of assays and the core trays that are in there, and we're looking downhole to see where those assays are located. There's different coloured clays, trying to understand if the colour means anything. And then what does that mean from a metallurgy point of view as well, because we obviously need to go and now understand, can we extract it? So all these rare earth shows, no matter if it's hard rock or clays or anything else, the metallurgy what drives it all, because generally recoveries are low, about 50 to 70%. So that's our learnings that we're really trying to now figure out and go, where's the best area out of these 4 prospects that's got good grade, good thickness, but really has the best metallurgy that can then also drive the economics as well. So we're busily trying to run little financial models to understand, is that good, is that bad, what works for us? And then you really need to keep it simple as well. So we can go try and produce 17 different rare earth elements, but your process plant becomes really complex. And with complexity, cost goes up from a capital cost, and with that also operating cost goes up. So what we're now trying to just determine is, where do we want to focus? So we obviously want the magnetic rare earths. The cerium and lanthanum probably don't really need, we can stockpile that for later, but we just want to have a simple circuit that's cost effective, gets it up and running, and makes money. There's no point having lots of different things but not making any money at the end of the day.
In terms of research of what rare earths is important, obviously we know the magnetic ones and things like that. Is there something sort of in the background where, where suddenly, it's like not long ago people didn't know how to spell lithium, spodumene, and suddenly, hey, we should look at these pegmatites. So is there outlying research that you guys are thinking, hey, maybe we should be looking at this as well?
Research in terms of what the different elements...
Where the elements could be used for,
Look, there's always new stuff coming on board. It's a bit like lithium, as you say, and there might be a new battery that turns around the corner and something else. I think what's going to drive a lot of this is not necessarily the new research, it's already known in terms of the NdPr side of things, but can you use some of the other elements more effectively that were going to be produced anyway? And will that go into glass? Will it go into smart mobiles or something else? And it's probably not our area of expertise, but there's obviously smarter people out there than us that can do it.
Yeah. Plenty of those people for me.
Yep.
The learnings, any spanners have come up or hurdles that you go, we need to do 2 extra steps now instead of 1 from your your results? Yeah.
Look, learnings is always something that you're learning out there. It was wet when we were doing the drilling, so don't go back in there in winter is always a good learning. But we'll obviously be having to go out there in winter and other times.
Yeah.
Look, we've spaced certain areas out at 400 to 800 metre spacings, so those areas we can probably tighten up now and we can learn from that. We've also learnt from the geophysics data what actually really works well for us now. So that will help minimise the amount of ground you need to disturb, how much obviously environmental impact you have as well, but also just optimises where your money's going to be spent. So we don't go chasing rabbits down holes that we don't need to chase. And I think with this aeromag or electromag that we're flying at the moment, that will also really narrow us down into the best areas and hopefully the thickest zones and best grades.
Okay. All investors wants to know, what's next? What's your news flow?
Yep. So we've only released half the results, so there's another half to come. One particular area up there, which is our scrum prospect. So it's probably a combination of multiple different areas. That's why we called it the scrum in the end. So a whole heap of different positions coming together there. But we're looking forward to seeing those assays, which are that way, and a bit of a zigzag, so a bit of a Z. And it's around granite rock, which is the original Splinter Rock itself. So we're looking forward to some really good results to come from those. We're also looking far and wide at the edges. So we've gone on the rugby theme here, but they'll be full back and wing and all those type of things if they become a prospect. But it's a big area that we're looking at. So that's good from that type of view. We've obviously got the the airborne geophysics survey, electromag, that's being flown at the moment. So that news flow will come out progressively, probably towards maybe the end of this year, but probably early next year that will come out with some more data. And then metallurgical tests, we've just selected all our metallurgy samples from the first round. They're heading off to ANSTO, so Australian Nuclear Science Technology Office organisation. So they've been doing the bulk of the test work in these regions for probably the last 10, 15 years. So they did the pilot scale works for Mount Weld, they've done it for Arafura, and I think they even did some for Hastings and others as well. So they're the experts in Australia. They also know how to do the downstream processing. We'll probably see met results in sort of 2 to 3 months, again, sort of that February timeframe. And then that will all culminate for us into what we think will be a big exploration target. We could probably put some into inferred now if we wanted to. Our plan is not to do that. We'd rather have a big resource all at once rather than a small resource that people will go, oh, it's small to start with. We'd rather say, here's X many different prospects at lots and lots of tonnes from an exploration target, and then go, bang, there's a big resource that underpins a scoping study, and we'll expect all those by the end of the year, next year, really.
Okay.
So plenty of news flow.
All right, so...
And lots of infill drilling next year as well.
Yeah, when you set into this year, it's just around the corner, mate.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the industry normally goes slow in December and January while everyone heads down south. So, but we'll be planning all our works and making sure it's all gets the approvals through the process, and back in drilling in February, and then probably a big program in June, July.
Yeah, everybody says that. I remember sitting on a drill rig 2 days before Christmas. Maybe the front office have gone off, but everyone's in the field still out there.
Yeah, I remember doing scoping studies and financing, and even a capital raise just before Christmas as well, which is when you don't want to do capital raises. But but the good thing is we don't need to do any capital raises anytime soon.
All right, and I guess the obvious question is: OD6 more attractive now?
Look, I think it is. It's proven the historic data, which for people were always, is that real? Was the work done properly? And yes, it was done properly, which is good. So we're definitely more attractive in terms of the data's there, in terms of obviously good assays. I think people now understand how big this scale could be. And I've been getting calls from all around Australia and other places going, we never expected Esperance to have this, and the scale that you guys are talking about, it's not 10 or 20 million tonne small little shows, it's probably 10 times, even 100 times bigger than that. So it's much more value now, and I think it's going to keep on getting up more value. If we crack the metallurgy with some good results between 50 and 70% recoveries with low acid consumption, she's going to be a rip snorter.
Oh, I think correct me if I'm wrong, this kind of game is all about volume. Is that a fair comment?
Well, there's lots of volume there, so I think we've got the volume.
Yeah.
It's now going to be about recovery.
Recovery.
And economics that are associated with it. So you can always throw lots of acid at it, but the more acid you throw, the more you'll you'll actually start dissolving elements that you don't want. So aluminium and iron you don't really want. They're harder to get out at the back end of the process, so it costs you another little step in the back of the processing circuit that you want to try and avoid. So there'll be a balance there that we need to try and get the right balance between getting lots of recoveries but also making sure the impurities aren't there as well.
Okay, Red, thank you. Great results.
Great results. Hopefully some more to come this year before Christmas. We'll get a little Christmas present for everyone. And then,
only if you're a shareholder.
That's right. And then hopefully some good Chinese New Year results as well with exploration targets.
Yes, always good. Make sure you sweep from back to front.
Yep, that's right.
All right, mate. Thank you, and till next time.
Yep, I look forward to updating you guys probably early next year, I'd say.
Yep.